Okay, so today I'm making a video on how I got one of my Apex accounts funded recently. Normally I use a slightly more aggressive strategy to get them funded and use YOLO sizing, and the reason for that I've put in other videos, but I wanted to share I wanted to, with this account, to really test myself to make sure that the strategy that I'm trading is 100% something that I can trade consistently. So I traded this as if it was a live account. This is really the first time that I've done this on one of these accounts. Up until now, I've either used them as almost like a step up from paper trading, just testing myself on different things, or used a very aggressive strategy to get them funded. So this was the first time I did this. I passed. Today was day 9 of trading this account, and I'll just bring up the chart real quick. I'll try to avoid showing my account number, but you can see that the cash, that the net liquidation is 53,038 cents. I was pretty lucky to literally pick the tick today that got me funded, which is quite funny. But yeah, it's a 50k account. You need to get to 53,000, so it is funded. So awesome. And I'm going to go through the strategy that I used to get this one funded, as well as the all the trades that I did as well. So you can see not just sort of like the theory of how you could do it, but also the actual strategy that I use in action. So I'll start off by just giving a really quick sort of rundown of what that is. So for me, what I look for is, once we've got an area that has been defined as an area of support resistance or a conflict zone, I see that as an area that you want to wait to see what happens at. There is no point trying to short the moment it tags or trying to buy the moment it breaks, because what you'll historically find is that in this area, and I've gone through this in previous videos as well, this area is going to be highly fought over. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. You're going to take a lot of stops before you even write. So like, you could be a breakout trader and you could end up being right with this, that it does end up breaking out, right? But in doing so, every time you try to take a breakout, you try to take it here, you take a loss. You try to take it here, you take a loss. You try to take it here, you take a loss. And those 3 losses, even if this winner you end up taking it and it gives you a 1 to 3, you end up breaking even. So for me, I dislike trading breakouts, but at the same time, I dislike trading that first reversal, because you shorten to here. Well, what if it just sort of like does this, and then you try and go again, and in the end you're right, but you could have taken a short here and taken a loss. You could have taken a short here and then taken a loss. You could have taken another short here and taken a loss. You could have eventually taken a short here and won, but again, you'd have ended up taking 3 losses for the win. So for me, my strategy is to wait until I get one of these areas, and once this area has been defined, ideally with a double top or something similar, I will wait for a confirmation, essentially, that that area is being used as resistance, and I'll do the same for support. I'll do the same for breakouts. I'll show those variations real quick. And what I will do is I will use a moving average. This is the 50 EMA. There we go. I'll just make that yellow so it's clear. So I will wait for this area to tag a couple of times. In this area, if this was the previous day's high, I wouldn't wait for the second tag. But if it's the high of day, I want to see, maybe you get like a false breakout, something like that, and you get a pretty nice head and shoulders pattern. I wait for that, and then once we get this move back below the 50 EMA, if we can flag back, I will look to trade on the break of that flag, kind of around here. I'll risk maybe not to the top, but we'll just put the top, and I look to take half of my position out once I get around about a 1-to-1, which is ideally on these flag setups, will be before this previous low, and then I move my stop to break even if it's a flag break, and I let the rest run. If this setup was slightly different and it had, say, done this and it had come to here, say it was more like this, and I didn't really love the flag element of it, and instead we did something like this, and I instead want to trade the break of this level. So I'd look for, instead of that flag we were looking at before, I'd take the break. Thank you. I'll get in here. I will do the same. I'll set my stop. I'll target around about 1-to-1, but I won't move my stop to break even, because I'm expecting the price, if it comes down, it hits my 1-to-1, a bit of momentum, it could well pull back into this area before heading down again. So what I'll do is I'll move my stop to at that point where it makes sense. So that's the short variation coming into resistance. Another kind of example would be if, the complete opposite of that, where you've got an area that is, it acts as support. Imagine the 50 EMA kind of being around here. We flag back, we go long. So that's another variation. Then another variation would be if we break out. So we come up into a level, we do this, and we flag back, and we have the same kind of thing where the 50 EMA is kind of doing something like this. Okay, so that's the 50 EMA. I would do the same kind of thing once we've got that clear move. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm waiting for this area to confirm whether it's support or resistance, and then take the next trade. And a big thing that I really like to look for as well is if price slows down. So if we get a situation where, say this is our level, and price has been doing something like this, being very nice and aggressive coming into the level, and then we have like price beginning to act more like this, right, and it's just slowing down, it's not really doing much. That for me is a real indication that we're likely to get some selling, because we've probably enticed a lot of buyers in there, and when it does sell, we're going to get a lot of stop losses. So that's the basis of the strategy. But like I said, we're now going to go through and I'll show you the trades that I took. So I can't remember exactly when I got this account. It may be partway through this day, which is why I didn't trade the open with this account. But let's go through. So the very first trade I took here, we've run into the same area of resistance. So we've had that double top. We've got underneath the 50 EMA. I took a mistake entry there. And what I did was I waited for this to flag back. I'm being honest, this is probably a little bit early compared to what I'd like now. But I was short here at 16.07650. I would have been risking probably to around about here. So we're looking at only around about 7 points or so. I took half of the position out for about 7 points, and then the rest I stopped out at break even. You can see that's the exact same setup I was drawing before. Next trades, exactly the same. We run into that area of resistance. We've double tapped that area. We got below the 50. We're holding below it. We get a really clear breakdown kind of level. The trick here is to wait for the point where you're expecting momentum to come in. We can see we've had that price slowing down. It's like being strong. Now it's slowing down. It's kind of gets to that point where people go, there's no move in this now. And then you take that once it holds a load of 50. My risk was probably like 10 points. I take half off for about 7 points. I'm a little bit jittery getting my exits out sometimes, but that's fine. It looks like I probably would have had a tighter stop. Or I might have just got out this one early for whatever reason. That might have been a mistake to get out early, which I will do sometimes. Let me just put that back in. The moving averages I've got on my chart, by the way, I've got the 50 EMA and the 25 EMA. Which I accidentally just deleted, so we'll put that back on. And I have actually got a video on my channel on my exact setup, so you can get that. You can see exactly what I am. I'm using the 800 tick chart. I'm trading the Nasdaq. I use the 50 EMA. I don't like to go long if the price is below 25 EMA and short if it's above. So that day was the 22nd of November. Day before Thanksgiving. So we then had Thanksgiving, which was a no trade day, I think. Maybe not. I can't remember. Or that was the Friday. So now on to November 27th. So this was the start of the week, and first trades here. And I'm going to show you here as well. I've made mistakes in this for sure. So we reject this area. We have a bit of an attempt to break up, but doesn't go anywhere. Gets below the 50. I get in short. Again, that's a tiny bit early. But I'd have got short there. I'd have probably been risking in the ballpark of 10 points. I get my first piece out for about 7, and the rest I get out for scratch. And I think what happened here was I tried to go short again, thinking that we had a flag here. And this is a mistake that I've been making a bit. I get in a bit too early. This is before there's really momentum. What I should have done is wait for the price to come a little bit lower and got in. So I took another short in there, stopped out for my first loss, is what it is. Next trade, same pattern. You'll see the similarities in all of these trades, because that's the whole point. Area of resistance tagged a couple of times. Price slowing down below the 50, rejects it. Nice little area of where we can get a breakdown. I get in on the entry of the breakdown. My risk would have probably been around about 10 points, maybe slightly less than. I get my first exit out for 9. Comes down, doesn't quite get my second target, and I end up stopping out for slightly less than break even. I moved the stop on that one. Wasn't a great idea. Next trade was a little bit unfortunate, I think. This was just a mistake trade, well, a mess around trade. So now we have the same kind of situation where we can see this level. It acted as support in here, it acted again and again. So I decided I'd begin looking for a long. We had this nice period where it gets over, begins holding the 50. I went long here, would have been risking down to about here. Take my first piece out here for 37. So around about 7.5 points, and you can see I got stopped out pretty much at the bottom of this wick. It was unfortunate, is what it is. My target was up here. Maybe the target was a bit far, but I try to hold on to them as much as I can. But I think if I was doing this one again, there's a chance I'd have got out earlier, but hopefully not. I then actually took just a flag trade. I was testing out a theory on this that if it holds this level, but this shouldn't have been a trade. And then we had the one really big trade of that day here. So we have this level here, 1690, which was previous resistance. We can see it was resistance back there. And it's exactly the same. We get underneath the 50. We flag really cleanly. I get in where I think there'd be some momentum coming in at 64, risking to about here. So not a huge amount of risk, 7 points risk. First exit was a killer. I got 8 points on it, so really good. And I think here I actually moved my stop. I think we were getting pretty close to it, and I decided just to take it out. We're getting towards the end of the time I like to trade, but we can see it would have actually given me a few more points. So solid trade there. And typically I'll stop trading around about 2:30 p.m. I do take trades after that. There's a potential trade setting up right now that I would consider, but when it depends a lot on the price action. If price has been sideways for a long period of time, I begin to lose interest because the likelihood of us getting a move relies on a breakout, which I really don't like. For me, if I take a breakout, it's got a very specific type of trade. So here we have a couple of trades, and I think what happens here was this was the first day that I linked this account to one of my live accounts. So I actually made a few mistakes here, and the first mistake was that although yes, we were holding this area of support, because we're in such a tight range here, me taking a trade here relies on a breakout. So both of these trades were definitely mistakes, but we can see from a thought process point of view, we've had an area of support hold, we're holding the 50 EMA, I get in long here. This was pretty close to hitting my first profit target. I probably only need a couple more points. End up taking pretty much the max stop on that one. And this was a bit of a revenge trade. And like I said, there was emotion in this because it was my first day trading both this funded, the eval account and the live account, which I hadn't done before. So there was a little bit of heightened emotion. And I jumped straight back in this and took a loss. So the start of this day was pretty brutal. I was down quite a bit fairly early on. And then I continued to make mistakes because I thought that this would be a legitimate setup here. We had this high matching this high, and I was like, okay, we've got my same short setup. And I completely ignored the fact that it was a previous area of key conflict. So I should be ignoring trades onto the short side at this point. We're kind of at a point where there's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be buyers, there's going to be sellers. So these first 3 trades were all mistake trades. It just goes to show you can make mistakes and still pass eval, still make money. The first really good trade I took on this day was we actually ended up holding that area. We can see it was pretty key area of resistance, turns into an area of support, and once we held the 50 EMA, we got a very clean setup here. You can draw the lines however you want. I went long here, took half out here, and the rest I got out up here. I could have got more. I think we can see that my depends where I put my stop. If I'd have had 10-point stop, I should have aimed for a bit more. Being honest, I think mentally I just wanted to remove the loss, so just take some profit back. Then I made another mistake trade, and this is the thing. Like this, this really goes to show that trading is a game of misses a lot of the time, similar to golf in the respect that you're not going to trade perfect all the time. You just need to make sure that your bad trades, maybe some of your bad trades make money, maybe all your good trades do, or however you want to, or the majority of your good trades do. You just need to make sure that your edge is big enough that you can have mistakes and still see profit. So this trade, it looks like a great idea. We got a breakout. The problem was, look at the time. If we go here where I got in, it's at midday, and this is the worst time to trade breakouts. For me, I only take these setups for breakouts if we've had, at this time, if we've had a very, very strong move and we've just been uptrending all day, and in this instance we hadn't. we also had this rollover effect here, which is a telltale sign that price is slowing down, that we're losing buyers, and therefore it's going to sell off. So I took a long here, took a stop on it. And then I got this trade here, which again was a little bit of a mistake because I got in before there was going to be a momentum move. It was right on the edge of what was acceptable, because this high here isn't, we're kind of holding above that high. So it was on the edge. I think it was an okay trade. I just got in a tiny bit early. We can see we pretty much bottom ticked this wick and then stopped out. And then the real trade where it was a slam dunk was once we got this really clean holding under. I took the trade right here at 44. I'd have probably been risking like 8 points on it, maybe a little bit more, as it went straight to target. Let's see. So I was risking around about 8 points or so. First piece out on this move here, and then the rest out down here. So that was a really nice trade in the end. And I then tried to take a long. This is a little bit later on in the day. It's not a horrible trade. I think it's legitimate. I see a lot of these trades this time of day. We can see this low here has held the lows that we opened up with. I jumped in along here on the break once we held over the 50. I jumped in long. I think this one I probably got super lucky with. I probably have my stop like here. First target, I only took about 5 or 6 points on this. It really wasn't moving very fast, and I put my stop down below this level here because it's a breakout trade and ended up pretty much breaking even on that trade. So yeah, and you can see, like, although I don't trade these times a day later on, there was another trade opportunity here. It bounced off the same area and it gave that big move. So and I like seeing that because it shows that we get the strategy continues to work. I will be making a second video as well talking about the mentality you need to pass an account, some of the errors that I made and some of the mistakes I think a lot of people make. So I will make a video on that, and also a video specifically on trading your P&L and why it is so bad. Next day we get this very clean breakout, and honestly I don't love this as a trade, but it's just about okay. We break above our pre-market high. We were strong in pre-market as well. We came back to the 50. I got in. I took half off on this push up here, and then I stopped the rest out for break even. Not my best trade, I'm not gonna lie. I don't love that one looking back, and that's a good example of, because I'm trading in good conditions, or good enough conditions, my edge is going to play out fairly well. I then took a trade here that was a completely legitimate trade. It just didn't work out. It holds this area of support. It flags back. I really like my entry. I waited for it to hold. I got in here, stopped out for a loss. Completely legitimate entry. Is what it is. You take losses as a trader sometimes. I then actually missed a long. I didn't love the way it had broken below the 50 EMA, but we can see that this low here matches up with the pre-market low pretty nicely. So this was actually an area of interest, and the way that we held above the 50 EMA and we held this area meant that it would have been legitimate to take a trade around here, risking to here. So I missed out on a trade here, is what it is. I don't know if it would have been a big trade or if I'd have got stopped out in second piece of break even. Next trade. So this area here, we get that really nice slowing down price action that I like. And although it hadn't been tagged before, it was the low in this area here. So I saw it as an acceptable level. I took the position on the break of this little move here. Took half out for around about 7 or 8 points and the rest out for a small loss. And that was that. And some days you just don't get very many setups, and that's just it really. You can't do anything about it. So moving on to November 30th, and this trade looks like it was possibly a mistake. I remember this trade. I don't know why I have this level here. Let's see. So it matched ups and lows. So the level is fine. Situation is good. The issue was that 10 a.m. there was news on this day, and I took a trade at 9:56, which makes no sense. And on top of that, I should have been waiting for this area here to break out for the momentum. So had I taken this trade correctly, I'd have been in at 9:58, and there's no way I'd have taken the trade at 9:58. So made a mistake here getting long, took the loss. The next trade I think is probably acceptable. We break the lows, we come back to the 50 EMA, I take a short and get stopped out. Looks like I moved the stop very slightly. I think this got very close to my first take profit. It was only a point or so away, so a bit unfortunate. Next trade, so we hold that area of support. We pull back to the 50 EMA. I get long here, take half out for a profit, half out for scratch. And what I really like to do is every half an hour is to refresh what I'm looking at. And what I saw was that this area of resistance acted as this area of resistance. So these were my new lines. We break under the 50 EMA. We had this really clean flag, beautiful short entry. I get peaks out. Could have even held for a little bit longer on that, but taking around about 8 points. And I think what happened here was I didn't give it all the room because of this massive, this is a very aggressive move. I mean, from my entry at 9:55, this gave me 30 points within, 2 minutes. So I just took that. Could have got a little bit more, but not a bad trade. I then took along a little bit later on, and again, you'll see the same mistake. This is a legitimate situation. We've held this whole area of support a few times, but I should have been waiting for this to break out here realistically. So I should have just been a little bit patient, just got in a little bit higher, especially coming into the whole number of 15,900. So could have waited, took a trade, took a loss. It's a mistake, is what it is. Next trade, absolutely perfect here. Low of day, tagged a few times. And this for me is like my A plus. I get these and it's like, this is perfect. Beautiful fly back into the 50. It holds the 50. I'd have got in here, probably risked around about 8 points. Got out a little bit early. I think we were running into that resistance, but half out for around 8 points and then the rest out for about 20. So could have made more, but not a horrible trade. And again, same kind of situation here where it held the 50, not as clean. Moving on now to December 1st. So pretty close now to where I get funded. And we had a pretty clean setup here. So we had some news, I think, around 10. False breakout. And I really wanted to get a trade here, but it wasn't holding under the 50. So I didn't take that there. Instead, I waited for this pullback to the 50. I got a killer entry, half out here, and the rest out for a big profit. So that was a really clean trade. And this one I pretty much got down all the way to my target by the looks of things as well, so pretty well done. We then had a long. We have this area, it's hit a couple of times. Flags back, holds the 50 EMA. I go long at 04. I take half out for about 8 points, the rest out for scratch. We then had, I think Powell was speaking, so I didn't take any trades. And you can see how, like, on this day here, there were tons of flag opportunities, but none of these were good enough for me. We had a level here. I don't like this as a breakout. We've got back below the breakout level. So none of these were legitimate setups, and I just don't participate in those sort of moves. But it looks like I still got a trade later on. So we can see this high here matched perfectly with the high of day from the previous day. And what ended up happening was this first entry, again, I should be waiting for at least this to break. So I get in early, I take the loss, I get back in, I take half out for profit, and I take the rest out down here. And this one, again, I got lucky with this one, actually, because I should have been targeting down here. I think my entry was here, my risk was there. So I should have been targeting down the 980 area. I took it out early. It never got there. So sometimes it does work out, taking it off early. I try not to, but, that is, part of it. And that mentally was actually just to, recover the loss from that and some. So it wasn't my best mental trade. On this day, so I made a... Did I make a mistake here? Yeah, I did. So I had this level here as a key level, and I think I actually had a... I think it was here. So this was my key level from the daily chart, and I screwed this one up. This was yesterday, I believe, or the day before yesterday, I can't remember. Yeah, we're a bit below the level, so this should never have been a long. Bit of a mistake to get in. Took a loss, is what it is. And then we got, one of my favorite, well, just a perfect trade for me. It came down into this area. It held a couple of times. This level's for today, so held this support area a couple of times. You see how price is slowing down really cleanly. Gets above the 50. It flags back. I get in long. I take half out and the rest out on this push up here. Pretty clean trade. Then we got another short in here when we ran into this same area of resistance as before. Wait for the 50 EMA. And this one again, like I so wanted to get in on this. It just didn't really set up. And I think that it might have been this trade that if I'd taken it, I'd have almost got funded on that trade. But I waited for the flag instead. It got in a tiny bit early here. But I waited for the flag. I took half out for some profit, rest out for scratch. Then I took a long, not actually in love with that long. I think this is maybe a mistake, but yeah, this is definitely a mistake I got into earlier on this. And I remember taking it and actually not liking it and putting it down as a mistake in my journal. But this is the thing. This is a situation which is relatively okay. It comes down. I get an entry. I get lucky not to get stopped out, take a small profit, and end up being a scratch trade. And then we come into, is this today? Yes, and then this is today. And I came into today needing 750 or something like that to get funded. So I was aware of that, and this was probably one of the most stressful trades I think I have taken on this account. So we ended up having this area here that was the previous day's high, and it also matched the kind of when we had the news, it held that area. So I was aware of that. I was also aware that we had this breakout. So we have the breakout, we pull back. We broke below the 50 by a little bit too much. I didn't take this, and I just waited until we got a setup like this. I get in on the break of this. My entry was here. First target took about 9 points on, and then I set my target here at 15, 9, 29, 25, not realizing that that was literally the tick that I needed to hit my profit goal. So that is how I got funded. They are all of the trades. I don't know the exact win percentage or anything like that because it's spread over a few different journals. But I think you can clearly see that it's a fairly straightforward strategy to implement, and yeah, it's how I got funded. So I'll make another video at some point talking about the mentality of getting funded, because I think a lot of people make the same kind of mistakes with their evals, and they worry a lot about how close they are to getting funded. It heightens a lot of emotion, and it's kind of a strange thing that happens. The prop firms have kind of created something that encourages people to actually trade more emotionally, and I don't think they've meant to do it, but in doing so I think it's meant that people are trading worse at critical moments and makes it more likely that people fail. There's a statistic that I heard once that the vast majority of people who get to within 30 or 25% of passing an eval end up failing. And that goes to show that a lot of people, when they get to that, maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the way there, they really begin worrying about it. They begin trading poorly. So I'm going to make a bit of a video on that. Just to close out this day, just to show you some of the other setups that I took. I made a mistake and took a long in here after missing a long here as well. But I did then catch a nice long here on my live account for profit, and then a long trade here for one of my other evals. So yeah, that's that. I hope you gained some information from that. It's certainly glad to pass this account in this manner, so I can give some value and some feedback for people on exactly how I trade and how I did that. And if you found this useful, let me know, leave a like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.